every athlete, every person, every human being has an opportunity. Some opportunities don't come when you want them. But if you're prepared, good opportunities can happen. Always be ready, because you never know when your number is going to get called.
I'm not coming back.
Emmy Apparel. Encourage me. I'm young.
Calvin T. Mann, leading Emmy, served over 20,000 youth through speaking, coaching, and mentoring. He has inspired us for years. Welcome to EMIYTV Podcast with your host, Calvin T. Mann, the Encourager.
What's going on out there in the world? Welcome to EMIYTV, Put Your Family First podcast. Today's conversation. Oh, hold on. I'm in the building with two ladies. Sorry about that. Please forgive me. How are you ladies doing today?
Great.
I'm great. Thank you for asking.
Yes, please forgive me. I think today we're going to discuss the Reading is Life pilot and the reason and move forward as we continue to apply pressure with and helping our boys. Shout out to my sister Bernita Bradley. Got to give shout out to Bernita. Shout out to Felicia Lagarde and the ladies in the early childhood workspace, but more importantly, shout out to Emmy. Shout out to what we do, right? And the fact that we sizzle on the grizzle. You know what I'm talking about? If you give us 5, we make it look like 100, right? And it's only so long, right? It's only so much you can do with that. But one thing for sure, we don't have. We still work from a sense of urgency and understanding that every child has value, and every young man that comes into our space has to be taught, and every family has to be involved, right? And so it's time for us to go national. Again, I will continue to politic about the investment that it takes for Encourage Me, I'm Young to be a national organization. I've seen a number of organizations, and I'm proud of those. But I like the work that we've done. I like the work that we do. And today is no different, as we will discuss our Reading is Life pilot, which was fire before we ever put it out. So we've had this reading program for a few years now, and we decided to pilot it and offer it to the public for free. And in the process, we were only had a little bit, and so if you can, Monique, I want you to put up our Cash App.
Okay.
Right, it's $ EMIGFO. Okay. Yeah, EMIYGFO, $ EMIYGFO.
You can keep talking, though.
Right. I just wanted to make sure she.
Oh, you know it. I'm
right.
sorry. It's a way I can do it. I'm gonna get it.
Right.
I forgot we got an actual logo. Cash App.
Right. So, and what we're asking you, the public that's watching this, we're asking you to donate. We have a certain expense, and on my way in, Miss Heather, I have to tell you that, we don't like to leave anybody out there, and we know that we have to change, right? Cut the amount of people, and we had a considerable amount of people, and we got calls from different countries, not countries, but different cities. We had people call in and were looking for this work, and so somehow, some way, the 6 weeks we got to really take a look at taking this literacy, because we already know it's dope. We've went through it. We understand it. We know what the results is going to be when you involve parents, and giving the parents the tools, right? Giving the parents the tools to with their boys, right? And giving the boys some tools while we're present. And so we're looking for some fathers out there who would like to participate as well. And you can sign up at goodfathersonly.com. And it's a membership, but it's also a way for you to volunteer. So if you're interested in helping boys be better, we're looking for you. Now, again, I'll say it, and it'll be on the.
I'm getting it.
That's okay.
Yeah, I'm getting it.
It's on the thing, but the Cash App is on the actual video. Thank you. We need your support, right? We need you to donate whatever you can to donate, so our young boys in this program will be taken care of. And right, we only got a little bit enough to work on our app, and the process, because this is the work that we're working on for the Reading is Life and growing Encourage Me, I'm Young. But our Cash App is EMIGFO, $EMIGFO, and we're just asking that you donate, right? It'll be to cover the kids' snacks and their T-shirts. So with that being said, Heather, how are you?
I'm really excited about this conversation, as I've been going through the applications, the registration forms, the preliminary steps to our pilot, which I'm really, really excited about. And I think, people may know that we're both authors, but people may not really know about where our history in this work at this age group comes from. And so I want to kind of tie in our history, kind of our personal journey, and then build this up to where we are today and why this program is so important. As always, I believe in framing our show to kick it off so that we're all on the same page and on the same level of understanding about the intention behind what we do, and how this is really, we talk about a community effort, it's even deeper than that. This is the village. This is the village reaching out, just like we talked about so many conversations that we have about what it was like when we grew up. This is the new village mindset. The new village mindset for Emmy and our work, that's Your Inspired Journey, that's Good Fathers Only. It is, how do we re-envision the village and the village today? So instead of constantly looking back to what we have to look at where we are presently, and then how we move this community, this family, this vision of who we are to the future. And so just to have that as the backdrop, our conversation today is about Reading is Life and the Reading is Life pilot that we are launching, which will be available for schools. It looks different for different environments. So in the program arena, in our pilot, it's actually a 6-week program, and it is with the boy learning separately from the parent, and then the both of them learning new tools together. So this is an important opportunity for parents to get some background information about not just Reading is Life, but parenting. It's about how we connect to boys at this level, both mothers and fathers and grandparents who are raising those children. helping us to retool not just the things that we know, but those things that we do not know. And so before we get into that conversation, I really want to talk a little bit about our backstory. So I'll have Calvin talk a little bit about his backstory in working with the daycare. I'll talk about my backstory in working with the Learning Center and some of the things that have prepared us to take on this work. I know people are like, well, you guys typically deal with, boys and teenagers, or you work in schools and you do all those things. All of those things are true, and we still have that background in those areas as well. But our ultimate goal is the restoration of family. And so anywhere that family can be built are the spaces that we've actually have experience in developing. And so I want to talk a little bit, have Calvin talk a little bit about his work in this early education when he worked in the daycare, and have him just give you a little bit of his background and experience and things that he learned during that time. Calvin, you want to talk about that?
Well, I'm going to make it real quick because for me it was... it's actually, the daycare is actually where God gave me encouragement. I'm young, right? And so while working in what people would consider all-white daycare, there were no black children in there. There were no black parents, just me. And in that process, God gave me the words, encourage me, I'm young. It was 1992. But I've always been involved with children. Even as a young man myself, I've always been involved with children. At 8, teaching the little neighbor kids and the kids we're still cool to this day, they'll tell you it was teaching them dance routines and things like that. So I've always been involved with children. And so the daycare experience was no different. It was no different when I had in-school suspension at Ferndale High School, where we didn't have, was no different in the mentoring program. I've always been involved with children in a protection mode, because I know as adults we steal dreams, take dreams, can destroy dreams. And because of the things that are at the table, from racism to nepotism to the other word is gatekeeping, to the different areas of separation and blockage and denial. Well, I don't know you, I'm going to give you this, but I'm not going to give you this, right? That whole dynamic, I've been involved with children to prevent that. I was involved with children when I went to the Special Olympics as a young man after getting kicked out of college. I've been involved with children. All my children, boys and girls, are successful parents. Except for maybe 1 or 2 or 3, right? And what I mean by that, I mean they just didn't have kids, but they're successful people. My story with children goes also along with my family, where I grew up with my parents and charter buses and things like that, in the community and that whole mindset. But my family is that way. So my family goes that way. My brothers and my sisters and my aunts and my uncles and my cousins and they've always been about children. So that's my story. That's my 2 cents, and that's where it's at for me.
I also would encourage you to talk a little bit about how this led to your children's books, because we're still talking about boys, and our pilot program, it's boys from 3 to 7 years old. That's 3 to 7 years old. And so if you can talk about the Adventures of Oberlin Luther and why you decided to make that a children's book versus a book for high school students, or...
Well, the reason why Adventures of Oberlin Luther was really created was a joke. I've been pretty funny my whole life. I know y'all don't believe that, but I'm pretty funny, right? And so it was a joke with some friends who talked the way that we hear a lot of people talk, in separation, based on culture and color and this person and that person. And so when I sat down to write it, it really had more to do with my son Cameron, and because I was in the middle of teaching him to read by the age of 4, and that was important to me to accomplish that, because I know if you can put in character development, those types of things, you can get some things done with a kid, right? And so getting him to read by the age of 4, but Oberlin Luther strategically was written and put in to become an encouraging model in the areas between 5 to 11, which is the smash suicide level. So if a kid can read from 5 to 11, they'll understand the Open and Luther series. So that being in itself also included Open Luther had their parents, and that was important. For the characters, both of the characters, to have both their parents, because we've written and shown and created too many dynamics where children don't have both parents.
Yeah, for sure. So thanks, Calvin, for sharing that. I know it's interesting to find when you meet somebody like Calvin and you meet him in one lane, and then you see, okay, well, you're developing programs, you're writing books, and we are talking about filling in the gaps. So Calvin has other books that he hasn't really promoted outwardly yet, but here's a sneak peek. He has one that's a cursive writing book. He has another one that's an early education book. What he didn't mention is Emmy involvement in the Hope Starts Here work that's been done in our region. From the beginning of that, Emmy has been a part of that. Calvin representing, again, making sure that our boys, especially at that age, are connected, and there's a conversation specifically around the needs of boys, because the needs of boys at that age is very different from the needs of girls at that age. All of them are important and all of them are growing and developing, but the curriculums are already developed toward the girl. And a lot of that is because a lot of the teachers that are engage our kids at that age are women. And so it's important that our boys have an opportunity to be developed and cultivated by males at that age. And so of all the research that we have done, one of the programs that is regionally successful around boys is Focus Hope, because they have more men engaged in the education process at that level. And so it was a nice piece of education to share, and some research that we were able to continue to uncover the importance of boys interacting with men at that age. So my personal experience and background is that I ran a education learning center in Atlanta, actually, Gwinnett County, which was a more affluent community at the time that I was there. So my job was to literally run all the phases of a learning center. I had the responsibility of 225 children from age 3 months to age 8. And it was a Monday through Friday. My day started at 4:30 a.m. because I had to be there to make sure that the facility was open by 5:30, and just running from there. And what I appreciated about the experience there was that I got a chance to be involved in every aspect of that work that every child would touch. So all of the learning centers, every child in that learning center had a curriculum. So children at 3 months had a curriculum. They had instruction, they had physical activity, even at 3 months old, which I thought was really an incredible opportunity to see how children at age 3 respond to a curriculum. And so we've taken the best practices of the Hope Starts Here efforts, of the private education, the Montessori education, all of those, the impact of all of that is going to be wrapped in our Reading is Life program. And so as we continue to move that program, I mentioned that we do have it available for schools. So if schools want to be engaged in our Reading is Life work, we use the Owen Luther model for that. And that's assembly style, that's classroom style, and we are, the principles apply the same way to the classroom. Although we know that we have a mix of girls and boys in those classes. And sometimes if the school will allow the separation of just the boys to have that experience, and we do that well. And if they want the integrated classroom or the integrated model, that works well as also. And so just to let you know that is one of the other vehicles, those contracts with schools is another vehicle that we're open, and that we want to keep that lane open and diverse. This is not, most people mistakenly feel that Emmy is a particular culture. When we talk about boys, we're talking about boys from 3 to 24, wherever they are located in our region in southeastern Michigan. So we are not limiting and classifying, because we know that every boy of different cultures and different experiences need what we have. And so because we're centered in an urban community environment, that's where a lot of our work, but we draw kids in our program from southeastern Michigan, so that's Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw County. So we're pretty proud that people come from that distance to be a part of what we offer. And so continuing to build that work, continue to open up this 3 to 7 model, so that we can start preparing our boys younger and get ahead of some of the challenges that they face, like being kicked out of daycare, for one. If you don't know, there is a preschool to prison pipeline as well. We believe in the preschool to promise model, and we know that promise is the promise that we make as a community, as family. That promise is the excitement of learning that we can re-engage in our boys, and that we can deposit in them, so that the seeds of learning and the love of reading and being able to be engaged is planted by age 3. So as they continue to move into preschool and first grade, kindergarten, first grade, and on, if we can get ahead of some of the challenges and some of the damage that happens to our kids, we're better able to draw out the promise in them. And our goal as an organization is to help others to recognize the promise, and to help the boys themselves to know that they have promise. So there's a promise of a better future. There's a promise of being able to utilize your gifts and talents and abilities. There's a promise that we're making to our children that they can and will have a brighter future. And we're part of that change model. And we've been a part of that change model with MCAM, which is the Michigan College Access Network. We've been a part of that work, and the Hope Starts Here. We've been a part of that work in many different areas, including elementary schools. So now we are trying to get ahead of that. We're trying to get ahead of what happens to our boys when they enter elementary school, when they are navigating daycare. So in our Reading is Life program, there's also the tools that are available for parents, the tools that are needed for boys to be able to get focused. And having two grandsons that are very, very engaged in this life process and very engaged in their promise and trying to keep up with them. Very smart, and we all know that our kids are extremely smart. They're sponges, and just for people who don't know that our children pick up as their brains and their capacity is at the same level as an adult, as a child. So they're picking up information faster, and they're maintaining that. So we have to be careful of what we're planting as sponges in their minds, how and what they're picking up. Because once they soak that in, it's a part of who they are, and it's a part of a part of who they become. And so we can help shape what they become by what we say and what we do. Increasing the number of words in a household is part of that process. That's part of what our Reading is Life initiative is going to help parents to do, help boys to do. Some learning techniques around reading and reading capacity. Of course, we know our basics is phonics, but how do you make learning fun in the ways that boys can grasp and understand it? So we have a lot of interesting activities on how to engage them and how to connect that engagement to reading. And so, and using some of the practices and principles that we do in our Emmy program. So we have a particular way that we organize, and that one of those ways is called the Emmy way. And so we're expected to use that same process to engage our boys in this 3 to 5 space. We call it the boy steps. So in the Reading is Life arena, in that area, we're really excited about what we're doing and what's coming next.
So let's get right to it, because I think it's important to get into this piece right here. But I'm like I said, I'm excited beyond because it's such an important piece.
It is, absolutely.
So I guess I can start here this morning as I was diving into more information about literacy. I know we were sharing as we were preparing to leave, and I was diving into literacy. I was, first I took a look at the United States education, and we were saying, the United States, all this stuff was saying the United States is still number one with education. I said, it's impossible. I literally just saw a list. How can you be number one and you're 26th in math? You know what I mean? How can you be number one in education when you're 26th in math? Right? You have the real aspects of the United States. They're very envious and slick. Right? They were talking about education is the number one place for those abroad to come into the United States. Right? The United States, if you close your eyes right now, if you remove the buildings, slavery is happening. And so when you look at how they want to tailor the education and ban books and things like that, that model in itself, to say that we're going to ban books, it's the same model they used when they stole books, the European model, and stole books and libraries out of the Greeks. Then they took that model and applied it to the European model, and that model today is what we call democracy. In that process, when we look at literacy, how important it really is, there's a reason that your adversaries take the education. There's a reason why they attack the reading levels in education and denied access the whole nine, because there's a sense of brilliance at the table with children. It's okay when it's your children, but when it's somebody else's children, it's close the border, it's do this, it's do that. But when you came over, the borders was wide open and the whole nine. We think that we built this country because we've lied and all this literacy. And so this is why reading is so important, so you can decipher the criminality that has gone into books and education and the stuff that they've said that you're supposed to believe. And now people, and it's just like anything else, now that people are waking up to the truth, now they want to go to war. It's just amazing how these things happen, because now we need to have reasons to go to war to make these things happen. But literacy has always been at the beginning and is not going anywhere. And that's why literacy is so important. That's why this is so important, because if you're willing to bomb a city but take everything that was written, like I'm about to take this library and get all this information that you wrote, and then I'm going to copy it, duplicate it, and create some of the same things. So I'm saying that to say that one of the things they say about the city, right? When you look at the city in the state of Michigan, you have all these different cities that's infested with crime. But what do they have in common? The very things that we talk about. The fatherless home. The fatherless disease is a really big contributor to slavery, prison, murder, right? It's a major contributing factor to women's safety, women being raped. The fatherless disease is a real problem. But when it comes to this literacy piece, the impact that a man has on the brain of the child is immense, and that's why we have to have early intervention for infants and toddlers. And so this is where your piece comes into play. I just wanted to put that in there because they're my favorite word, cognitive.
Yeah, so getting ahead of it is really what we're trying to do. So when you work with high school students, you know that you need to go back to middle school to instill some of those values. And when you work with middle school students, you know, to go back before that into elementary school to instill some values. And when you work with elementary school students, now you know you got to go back to daycare and kindergarten and preschool to instill these values in the boys. And so we continue to build where we were. And so when we work with high school students, we were building in that area. So now that we have an understanding of that population and how to help them, we keep going back to get back to the real preventive stations, the real preventive states of where our boys are starting to shift and where they're learning to shift. So this information that I'm going to share with you goes back even a step further. So this is between birth and the toddler age. So it's a little bit that I want to share with you, and the number of children that are also diagnosed with a disability from the onset of birth. So I want to share a bit of this information. So this information is coming from the National Early Childhood Technical Assistance Center, and this is also from research from the Center on the Developing Child at Harvard University. And so this is kind of a summary of some of the research that they came up with. It says neural circuits, which create the foundation for learning, behavior, and health, are most flexible or plastic during the first 3 years of life. It says over time they become increasingly difficult to change. So now if we're trying to get ahead of a mindset, if we're trying to get ahead of the tools that parents need to have, we need to start that process between birth and 3 years old. So by the time that they're 3 years old and they have some of those basics is where we're coming in with our Reading is Life. But in our Reading is Life, the way that we teach boys in particular is very and it's very important to their journey at this point. So once they've developed those things, and that from birth to age 3, what that means is everything I've learned at home. This is an important piece. Everything that I've learned from birth to 3, I've basically learned at home. So I learned being around, if I have siblings, I've learned being around parents or grandparents, friends. So we tend to think that children are not paying attention. If you ask your circle of friends, I will like to bet that at least 3 out of your 5 friends would remember what it was like or something about their early childhood from that age, from cradle to potty training. They're going to remember something significant. And so we tend to kind of not think about those things. So we do things around our children because we think they're not paying attention. They won't know. But children are they're very gifted in reading emotions, facial expressions, and the tonality of your voice, because they're still as close to the womb, where those impacts on who they are shaped to be in the womb are still influential on them. So when mom's voice goes up, you'll see some kids, they'll just start crying, or dad's voice goes up, they'll start crying. Why are they crying? Because part of the memory of what they had experienced while in the womb is also now a part of their development. And so they know if you're raising your voice and you must be upset about something, and then they're feeling how we're responding in our emotions. So we have to be really mindful about how we're saying when we're angry, how we deal with people, and what they're seeing. What we're saying on the telephone when we think our kids aren't listening and they're in their car seats and they're in the back seat and you're going on about whatever conversations you might be having. We have to be mindful and pay and give attention to those opportunities to share more positive things, to clarify things, and how we say what we say. We have to be careful about our behaviors. If we're trying to raise drug-free children, then guess what? You gotta not have drugs around your children. And we think because marijuana is openly legal, we don't even know the real institution of legalized marijuana. We have to do a whole show on that. Just what the truths about it, what the myths are about it, because our families are in trouble because you think that you can get in your car and smoke weed and ride up and down the street and you're not going to get pulled over because it's legal. That is an error. It is an era. And so it's so much that people need to know just about general behavior, general use. If there's a child anywhere near you smoking weed, you can be arrested for that. Arrested, fined, your license suspended. I mean, there's a whole network of things that happen to you when you misuse that information. So
why would I arrest? Why would I arrest you when? That's what I want you to do. I want you to damage your child.
Yeah.
Why would I give you? Why would I pull you over, deal with you, when I already know you are already damaging your child? To go ahead. The brain. Let's go to the brain is strengthened by positive early experiences, especially stable relationships with caring and responsible adults, safe and supportive environments, and appropriate nutrition.
Yes, indeed.
So positive early experiences, stable relationships with caring and responsive adults, safe and supportive environments, and appropriate nutrition.
Mm-hmm. That means no the hot Cheetos for the babies.
Well, we know you got to understand that the problem is you don't have enough information. This is back to the literacy. You didn't sit down and read the books on how to really pay attention to how to raise a healthy baby. You didn't really go into the importance of making sure that right? So these things play out on the child. And so it's just, and I say this with a clean mind when I say it's easy to make a pivot and blame somebody else where there's no accountability and yet I have possession. Like I bust in the door, you holding a child just like you holding some weed, right? Remember I don't know if you saw the story about 4 years ago. It's a video. They were with kids, literally watching the kids in the house. And they was giving the blunts to the kids to smoke. And the kids were smoking the blunts.
And when we're saying kids, what age are you speaking?
We talking babies. We talking under like 5. Mm-hmm. Right? Was smoking the blunts. And they were literally on the video, the whole 9, right? You know the statistics about who does the most damage to a child, right? But in this case, these women were smoking weed with them. And then they was watching them clown and they was videotaping it all. They all went to jail. They went to jail. They literally took that video, knocked on the door, grabbed them 2 women, locked them up, period. They went to jail. We like to think because we don't have enough information, we're above the law, right? And when I say we, I'm talking about America. See, America likes to think that they're above the law. Those that know the law and those that don't know the law. They like to think I'm above the law. The law likes to think they're above the law. We can go on with that one, right? But right here, for the children, right? The next one, early social emotional development, physical health, Emmy future leaders, provide the foundation upon which what? Cognitive and language skills develop.
Yeah, for sure. And so that helps us to understand that our kids, and we have labels or diagnosis for our kids, and so there are opportunities for us to shift and help shift them, but we need to have more tools. And this is one of the reasons why we do so much work in our programs with our families, because if you're doing work in the program with the boys, they still have to go home. How do they then learn from the things that they learned at the program and then have it reinforced at home so that they can have a better start. And they have we talk about wraparound services. So you have supports wrapped around you at home. You have some supports wrapped around you in school, in our programs. And that's one of the reasons why we go into the schools, that we go in and check on the boys in school. So we wrap around them school, home, and what we call community, because we're part of their community. And we are part of their village, more specifically in that community, because we are the ones who will intervene. And this is part of our work. And this is why this Reading is Life initiative is so important, to help tool the boys at that age, help tool the parents at that age. And then I spoke to a parent today, and she was talking about one of her children who, by the way, he'll be 3 at the end of June. We'll have to talk about that. To be a part of the Reading is Life program, he's already reading. He's already able to recognize letters and pronounce them, and so he's a little bit further ahead. But what a wonderful conversation to hear a mom talk about and be excited about her 2, almost 3-year-old being able to have that skill. So part of what we do is part of what this study that Harvard University talked about. It says children's earliest experiences play a critical role in brain development. So their early experience as they go into Reading is Life is going to be how to connect social skills, how to connect new words, how to connect building a love for reading because of pictures and images. These are some of the things that we're going to help build out in them and this program. Help parents to be able to do better and have a better understanding of the things that should be planted in our kids. Take information from our parents to say what they're doing that's working. This is about the village mindset. This is about being that neighbor that sees your child doing something out of order and correcting them. This is that village that says, we're going to do this block club celebration. So we're going to bring them into one space and we're going to celebrate them and show them ways to have fun that's not harmful to them. This is what we're doing in this Reading is Life. These are the things and the seeds that we're planting in our boys. How to be able to sit for a period of time to read or listen or follow directions. Those are things that are taught. And so Reading is Life is going to help us to help those boys get those skill set, to help our parents to reinforce it at home, so that when those boys are going into the classroom, whether it's preschool, whether it's daycare, whether it's kindergarten or first grade, these are critical ages and critical times for them. They have to be able to learn how to navigate that classroom, because they're often the first kicked out and they're not embraced back into those environments once they get that label. If you're labeled as a bad kid, a disruptive kid, you continue to get passed on more than likely. And they pass you either from daycare to daycare until the word gets out, or you can no longer be passed anywhere. So parents have to find another alternative for their kids, a family member to stay with them. So it robs them of experience, but we have to plant those seeds. We have to shape their behavior. We have to shape that brain activity. We have to shape their understanding of play and appropriate times to be able to do what you need to do versus what you want to do. So Reading is Life is kind of that first step to do that and take it that way.
Do not show up at this reading pilot smelling like marijuana.
Yeah.
Do not. You're not getting in. And so I'm going to make it clear. Off the bell. I'm sorry. That is damaging in itself. And it shouldn't be happening, and so we got to make that clear. But I really, I like the last one. High quality early intervention services can change a child's developmental trajectory, improve outcomes for children's families and communities. And again, that's the work we do. Before this reading program, we're doing this work already, and it's just important to highlight and continue to raise the value so our young men have opportunity. I share this because it's important. When I was a little boy, I was at Pastor. I was at Pastor Elementary in the city, right? Pembroke and San Juan, right? Santa Rosa, right? And it seemed like every day, I was in a fight. And then I got kicked out of Pastor, and I went to Hickenbotham. I'm at Hickenbotham scared, but I got to fight because I just can't let you do that to me. I got to fight. So I'm fighting. I can't even concentrate on my grades. I can't concentrate on my development. I had no peace whatsoever in those schools. Then I barely passed, and I go to Beaubien. When I get to Beaubien Middle School, same thing. My family huge. We know everybody. Like, it's where we grow up. And the trauma that I saw, right? Grasshopper being murdered at the basketball court at Johnson Recreation, seeing bodies in the field at Johnson, not being able to play little league sports because at the time I was overweight, couldn't do it. Constantly in battle for just a little bit, right? Find my niche singing in the choir. I got to fight outside of the choir. So when I get to middle school, now it's gang stuff. Now I got to be involved with this, and I got to be involved with that. And so now I got to to protect myself, I got to put on my brother's jacket with his nickname on the back. Right? While I'm in middle school. It's lunch fights while I'm in middle school. Right? Full-blown food going across the room, throwing at each other, fighting, the whole nine. My question to anybody in this state, when it comes to education, why has that not changed? Why has that not changed? Why do we somehow think that that's good for a child to experience? This is why the numbers are so low, right? And the charter schools is able to come and pull you out because some parents wanted the opportunity for their kids to at least try to get an education, but as soon as you pulled them out, it was more games pulling them out. Now you got a situation where the parents pull up to the school, the kids get out the car smelling like weed, the kids go in smelling like weed, then we got this expectation that this kid is supposed to be good. And the kid is going, oh my God. But imagine a 5-year-old. This is stuff we're seeing and dealing with, but imagine that 5-year-old. There's a 5-year-old that took his life today. A 5-year-old took his life today. A 6-year-old, a 7, maybe a 9, 10, 11, 12. They took their life today. These environments that we've created for these children are horrendous. And somehow we think it's acceptable. No, it's not. And we have to have a standard. We have to re-engage and have a standard for family and everything. So conduct and everything else is better for our children, so our children can be brilliant and can go into environments and can succeed and can be business owners and can go to college and can go to trade schools and can pass math tests and can, right? We have to do that, not so much the educational system. It is the parenting has to be better.
So the last two things I want to share is that it says that intervention is likely to be more effective and less costly when it's provided earlier in life versus later. And so this, again, back to our Reading is Life, looking at our boy steps, looking at the work that we do, that's in prevention and intervention. Prevention and intervention, both very important pieces of this whole new mindset and how we're supporting our boys. Then it also says that positive Early experiences are essential prerequisites for later success in school. So again, we have to get ahead of the challenges, and we have to be able to equip both the boys and the parents with the right skill set, with the right set of tools to be able to navigate this next level of their promise. And so I'm really excited that we had more parents apply to the Reading is Life initiative than we had spots. We are going to continue to build on this program. And because those parents came from everywhere from southeastern Michigan, Wayne, Oakland, Macomb, and Washtenaw counties, have been reaching out to participate in this program. So we know, and speaking to some of those parents, they said this is so needed. They were really excited to hear about it, and as soon as they found out about it, they got on that registration. So
we got calls from Louisiana, Ohio, Chicago, Atlanta. Those are the calls we got. We got a call from deep east side. That's a whole nother country. Anyway, yeah, so Heather, tell them where they can reach you at.
You can reach me at yourinspiredjourney.com. That's yourinspiredjourney.com. And you can also call me. Please call me. Don't send me a instant message on social media. Please call me directly or visit my website. My phone number is 313-759-7855. 759-7855. If you don't get me on the phone, leave me a message and or send me a text. I will get back with you.
Lori said, the busiest man. I'm really not. I think we are piling on more work than because of the sense of urgency, and people don't understand that. But you can reach me at calvintman.com. Reading is Life was a slogan, right, that about 10 years ago I began to use. And it was because of conversations that I continued to have the conversation that reading is life. We understand, just like we just read about the impact of intervention and prevention, the impact of the cognitive early experiences with youth, the whole nine. But then when you get to the middle of your life, right, they said some cases that some people have not picked up a book since high school. Some cases they said some people read one book a year. Then there were some other cases that they discovered in seniors that reading helped with longevity. So when we get into the term reading is life, right? Because the brain has to be exercised. The brain and the body has to be exercised, but the brain has to be exercised, right? The brain requires a certain amount of words. When you're talking about reading, a young man in impoverished areas are 1.5 million short of words. They're in poverty-stricken homes. There are 30,000 words. That's it. In educated homes and marital homes, you got 1.5 to 3 million words in that home. There are conversations, there are reading, there are stories, there's historic stories. Storytelling is a huge part of what reading is all about, and why it's such a thrilling thing, and how do we tell stories, right? We have far too many, as I said this morning, too many pimps and players and not enough fathers. We have too many pastors and not enough in-house fathers. We have, it's important for us to understand how important those things are, because reading is life. We understand that the father impacts the family, the mother together impacts the cognitive mind of the child. Reading is life. We understand that if I sit down and read to my child, there's a sense of confidence that is built in the child when I sit down to reading. Reading is life. There's a sense of success when given opportunity in life and business and education and work and where you go, if you can read. There's a sense of success when you can walk into a place of confidence, a bank, a job, or a car dealership and everything, and understand the words of the jargon. There's a sense of success, how I felt so accomplished to break down the words in order to apply for the trademark in other countries. That made me feel tremendously good because I had paid for trademarks before, and this time we've been handling our business when it comes to that because we are able to break down words and understanding what those words mean, and we ask questions. Reading is life. There's a sense of success, versus something dictating to you. Right now, everything is being dictated to our children. So a screen is telling me what to do, think, how to act, how to move, the whole nine. And guess what? I'm doing it.
Now, don't get us started on how AI is taking over your thinking.
There's a sense of success, right? when you apply. Right?
When you can write it and read it.
You can write it and read it. There's a sense of success when you can do the things that you need to do to make sure through literacy, right? There's a sense of success. I don't know if this went over well to a lot of people, but the reason why Eminem is seen as a better rapper is because literacy. The reason why some of the best rappers, is literacy. Some of these rappers got 5 words, right? And somehow that's supposed to be cool, and that's a bad message that's coming to